Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If we could all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. Ms. Lisa, can we have roll call?
Albert, did you unmute yourself?
Yep, sure thing. Okay. Joseph Citro.
Here.
Cal Hardy.
I'm here. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
So I know we got Una Johnson on here. I don't know if you want me to ask her to present. Okay, Una Johnson.
I'm here.
Julie Ham or Mark Hudson.
I believe they communicated excused.
Michael Marino. Melissa Colazzo. David Hay.
Here.
Emily Hinsdale.
Here.
Aaron Cashin.
Present.
Larry Josephson. Larry Josephson or Richard Rank. Karen Kress.
Oh, he just joined. I see him now.
Okay.
Larry's on the phone. So,
That's
hi, Larry. We're counting you here.
All right. We got Karen Kress.
Karen Press here. Here.
Matt Lewis.
Here.
We didn't hear you, Albert, on that one.
Justin Willits.
Here, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Roger Menendez.
He's alternates here.
Okay. Casey Dagenhart.
Here.
Jason Jackman.
He's communicated late. He'll be here in 30 minutes.
Kathy Coyle.
Present.
Arizona Jenkins.
Yep.
Carlos Ramirez or Chris Milster. Ray Mensa or Sarah Hendricks.
Here.
Anna Quinones.
Here.
Gus Ignis.
I see him here. He might have audio problems. Hi, Gus.
And then Sandra Picciarelli.
Here.
And that's it.
I thank all of you for being here today. Ms. Silva, is there any public comments?
No, none's been communicated. Thank you.
Okay. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes from February 17th, 2021.
Motion to approve the minutes.
I have a motion from Mr. Jenkins. Is there a second?
Karen Press. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion made by Mr. Jenkins, seconded by Karen Kress. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay,
Aye.
motion passes. All right. Ms. Silva, we have plenty of new members to introduce today. Shall we give them a few seconds to tell us about themselves so we can welcome them to this committee?
That would be great. I'll just remind everybody, you guys requested, and the MPO has begun processing the request to add a school district member to your committee. So Matthew Pleasant did get on the call. So Matthew, if you would unmute yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, that'd be great.
Sure. Good morning, everybody. Happy to be here. Matthew Pleasant with the school district. I joined the department, the district last year in the planning department. And some of you might have known me from, working on the private side. I was with Renaissance Planning for a couple of years before I joined the school district. And I was previously on the TAC committee, and I think the thinking was I'd be a better fit here. And I think that this kind of feels right. We at the school district have been continuing the MPO's work on the with school safety, and I head up the internal working group, kind of facilitating the work we do with the county and the city to talk about transportation issues around schools each month. So this kind of dovetails really nicely with the work that we do there, and just really look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Welcome aboard.
If I might add, Matthew Pleasant joined after the school transportation working group was in existence, and he's correct. I wanted the committee to know, because they've been very interested in when that school transportation working group retired. The on-site circulation internal committee that Matthew just referenced is one of the things that was a success that helped replace the need for the working group. And so Matthew's right in the trenches on school transportation issues, carrying on that good work. And then his alternate is Amber Dickerson. So when Matthew has a conflict, you may see Amber's face on the committee. Thank you. Do you want to, so then our other member is, new member is representative for the American Society of Landscape Architects. They're one of our professional organizations that's on the committee. Our current member, Christine, is taking maternity leave, and so she got an alternate, and Una Johnson is her alternate. So Una, if you can turn on your camera and show us you, great. If not, if you could at least unmute yourself and tell us about you.
Hi, can you see me? I'm having trouble with the buttons.
It's flipping, but I can't see you yet, but that's not to
Oh,
fear.
there it is.
There,
There. Hi, nice to meet you all virtually. My name is Una Johnson. I'm a landscape architect, about 20 years experience. And this was an interesting group for me to be a part of because I specialize in public projects, public realm, complete streets. I also work a lot with schools and school districts, playgrounds, that sort of thing. So I enjoy the public realm and the safety aspects of things and roadways. Some things that you may not know about me. I've lived in a few different countries. I've lived in Taiwan, the Philippines, Slovenia, and Italy. So I come at this with a worldly view. So wow. I'm really excited to see how this group works. I've heard so many great things about it. So I'm really excited to join in.
Thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
Well, welcome aboard. Thank you for being with us. All right, Ms. Silva, we've got our discussion items coming up here. Hillsborough County School Route Program Development.
I sent the invite to Diana Ramirez for Hillsborough County. Yay, her screen should be showing for everybody now. Yay.
Morning. Is it showing already, Lisa?
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Good morning, everybody. I'm so honored to be here with you all and to present the School Route Safety Improvement Program. And to tag along on the presentation for Matthew and Amber, I've been working with them very closely on this under this program, and they're awesome. So I'm so glad Matthew is here as well. Okay, now with no further ado, good morning again, and my name is Diana Ramirez. I am with Hillsborough County Public Works and the School Routes Safety Program. This morning, I'm going to share with you some information that will provide a picture of what we at Hillsborough County are doing to improve safety for our students. I'll start with this quote from Dr. Leonard Sweet. And please ponder upon this quote as we progress through the presentation, because I'm going to quiz you at the end. No, I'm kidding.
Okay. Wait.
The future is not, yes, go ahead.
The slides aren't advancing. We're still on the title slide, so we're not seeing your.
Yeah, that's okay. I'm still on that one presenting, so I'll go on to the next one. But thank you for pointing that out.
Okay. All right.
The future is not something we enter. The future is something we create. Let's see if it does advance. Did it advance?
Okay, yes.
Okay, cool. This is the outline of what I will be sharing with you this morning. The program initiation, what prompted the need to revamp the school route safety program. The prioritization methodology is what is and how was this prioritization done. The project development process, what is and how was this project development process done, and of course, what are the next steps. Let's see. What prompted the need to revamp the school route safety program? As we all already know, most of people already know, the county has some system to receive and manage customers' requests. For a school safety request, this process has been mostly a responsive one. This means that when the county receives a request related to the student safety, the county investigates the issue and then, when feasible, implements improvements as soon as possible to resolve it. If not feasible to take action immediately, the project or the need becomes a project and it takes longer. The community requests for the student safety needs have been considerably increased since two policy changes were implemented. The first policy change was in 2017 when the courtesy busing was removed from all students that no longer met the hazardous walking conditions within the 2 miles walking distance as defined by Florida statute. And the second policy was in 2018 when the new belt changes were implemented. Why are these two changes so significant, and why did they cause so much considerable increase in safety concerns reported to the county? As it can be expected, reducing the courtesy busing service requests as the courtesy busing service increases the number of students who walk to school and bike as well. The belt changes resulted in elementary students walking to school during those hours in winter time, but not only elementary students were affected. This also impacted middle and high school students who walk to school early in the, for breakfast or other needs. After these two changes took effect, it was evident that the school route safety program needed a new direction. And in an effort to keep the students safe, the county decided to take a more proactive stand. As I mentioned before, the school route safety program was mostly responsive, but now with this new initiative, we added a proactive component, which includes a prioritization methodology and a project development process. The prioritization methodology is a data-driven process. Let's see what prioritization methodology and project developments are all about. The prioritization methodology includes 3 main steps: determining the inventory, prioritizing the inventory, and resolving the overlap that we found within the 2-mile attendance areas. Let's talk about a little about the inventory. The MPO, in collaboration with Hillsborough County School District, did a study and created a report named School Safety Study in 2018. And the current slide shows the cover sheet for this report. Thanks to the MPO study, we were able to inventory the schools in a more efficient manner. We used the data from the school safety study to inventory and prioritize the schools. This study identified a total of 268 schools. This included private schools and city schools, etc. And from this list, there were 132 that were screened for the school route safety program. The prioritization. Let's see how we did how the prioritization was done. The prioritization was also based on the school scores from the MPO school safety study, and the 132 schools that were screened were also listed and prioritized using their scores from the study. The lower the score, the higher the priority. Once the schools were prioritized, they were plotted in GIS with their respective 2-mile attendance radius. And here you see the schools, how the schools were plotted in the respective areas. The overlap became clearly. Imagine these 3 rectangles were like semi-transparent and one on top of each other. You will see probably a very colorful dot, right? So the issue could have been caused to account for walking routes more than once. And why do these walking routes overlap? They overlap because we know that elementary schools feed middle schools and middle schools feed high schools. And by default, these have common areas. How was the overlap resolved? So this was a critical point on progressing through this program. We resolved this overlap by categorizing the schools in primary or secondary. A primary school overlaps the 2-mile attendance radius of a secondary school by as much as 85% or more. Once the primary and secondary schools are identified with their 85% or more overlap, the secondary school now is renamed a tag-along of the primary school. The primary school is grouped with the tag-alongs to be studied together. Using this technique, now I'm getting dry, hold on please, sorry. Thank you. Using this technique gives us 3 main advantages. First, eliminates double or triple counting of school routes when identifying areas for individual schools. Second, during the planning, shared routes are identified. Therefore, these routes can be improved at the same time, benefiting more than 1 or 2 schools. Actually, in this case, we're going to go into it. Some of the routes benefit 3 schools. Third, this way the available dollars are stretched and better used. The project will benefit more than 1 school, which will require less dollars for improvements than if we were to address 1 school at a time. The next step is to determine what kind of improvements we needed for each school and for the primary and tag-along schools as a group. So we identified improvements needed for 1 school and for the schools as a group within the same area. We took the first 3 schools on the prioritized list and worked on creating the project development process. These schools included 2 primary and 1 tag-along. The schools were Pierce Middle School with a tag-along, with Alexander Elementary as a tag-along, and Little High School, which didn't have a tag-along, and Pierce was ranked number 1 on our prioritized list, and Little was ranked number 2 in our prioritized list. These 3 schools are less than a mile from each other, and both Little's and Pierce areas overlaps Alexander's by 100%. This is a very densely populated urban area with a large number of students walking and rolling to school, which was a perfect opportunity to carry, the Spanglish is coming through, which is perfectly to carry the implementation of the process. Okay, the project development process required more steps than our methodology. However, it was a lot of fun as well. The project development process required had more steps, and you can see them in the present slide. For the sake of time, I'm not going to read through each of those, but you can see there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 steps identified. Now, the first step of the project development process is to perform a desktop analysis, which consisted of collecting and analyzing GIS and field data. Once the GIS and field data are collected, they are used to determine routes, which are the high, moderate, and low demand routes. So we have 3 types of routes. The current slide shows a layout of the high and moderate demand routes. The red lines show high demand routes, and the blue lines show moderate demand routes. Now, this new slide shows routes that serve one or more schools. Blue lines show routes that serve one school. Green lines show routes that serve 2 schools, and the purple lines show routes that serve 3 schools. With this, you can see the benefit of having done this process. Okay, now after the routes are identified and categorized, it's time to get more ideas and input from our stakeholders. And this is where we reach out to Matthew and Amber, which were so amazingly awesome. The committee, we formed a committee that was created for each school. We call it advisory committee. And it was formed at least with from user, let's see, at least with one member presenting each of the representing one of the various community groups, like shown on the slide. And this is our community, and we can add and subtract groups as needed for each community. But this is kind of the base number of groups. Identify the basic groups. This step is critical because the community members who serve these areas have the depth knowledge of the issues that we need to resolve. For our first trial of the process with the top 3 schools, we held 2 virtual meetings for each school. The first meeting was held separately with each school, and we shared findings and received input and recommendations from all the members. However, the second meeting was combined for all 3 schools. We updated the information and got concurrence and additional input from the committee on high and moderate demand routes, overlapping routes, and the preliminary proposed improvements. After the advisory committee meeting, in this case, we use 2 advisory committees depending on the area or the school needs. We might in the future have more advisory committees, but I think it's going to be at least 2, depending on the area, like I mentioned. Okay, after this advisory committee meeting, a comprehensive field review is performed on the identified routes with the participation of various engineering disciplines from the county and the consultant. The goal of this comprehensive field review is to identify safety needs and locations and to recommend specific improvements. Once these improvements or recommendations are identified, they're grouped into 3 tiers. Tier 1 are low complexity, easy to implement improvements that could be done in less than a year. Please, at this time, I'd like you to know that the timelines I am providing are based on funds being readily available for the project. If no funding is available, additional time will need to be added accordingly. And we know our surtax didn't pass, so this is going to be a challenge raising funds, but it's totally worth it. Tier 2 improvements are of moderate complexity with minor coordination and require some level of design. These type of improvements can take up to 3 years. And Tier 3 improvements are of high complexity with major coordination and major impacts required in higher level of design. These improvements will take more than 3 years. After all this work is done, it is time to reach out to our community again. This time, the main goal for the outreach is to include the entire community, the residents, the school, the parents, the community groups, everyone that is going to be impacted by this or benefit by this project. At this event, we share and inform about the proposed improvements and also ask and inquire for additional input on the ongoing project. The community engagement phase 2 for our first 3 schools was done virtually in this December, and I like to take this opportunity and thank the MPO and again Matthew, Amber, and their group for the participation and help with this. It was amazing. Thank you. Now, this flow chart shows a summary of the different stages and it takes to implement this new part of the school route safety program. And the green arrow shows where we have been, the orange shows what we are doing right now, and the blue one shows what is coming. Now, we already went through what has been done up to date. Where are we now? Currently, we are finalizing the project development process for the first 3 schools. And remember, those were Little, Pierce, and Alexander. ACOM is developing tier 1, 2, and 3 preliminary plans and cost estimating preliminary, also cost estimating along with a feasibility report. All these tasks are expected to be finalized by mid-April. And the county is also planning to implement tier 1 improvements. Remember, these are the low costs under a year, not 2 and 3 in tier 1, coming this summer before school starts. And also the county is currently pursuing funding for tier 2 and tier 3 improvements. What's next? Wonderful things are coming next. Since now we have established a guide and a methodology and we know where we're heading, we have a vision, the county is going to repeat this process with the next schools on the prioritized list. And which are the schools? Well, you see them in the slide. They're Keene High and Robles Elementary, Gator High, I don't know if I pronounced that, Gator High and Claywell Elementary, Brandon High and Limona Elementary. They're in pairs, so the first group were 3, but now Keene and Robles are 2 schools, and the first school is the main school, and the second school is the tag-along, as I explained in the beginning. Let's see. I think we're getting to the end. I was having so much fun. Okay. Now I would like to trigger your memory a little to see if you remember the quote from the beginning of the presentation. And for those who don't remember, the quote was, "The future is not something we enter, the future is something we create." And these groups and this community is creating the future. And we at county are very excited to create a brighter future for everyone. So today we're creating a safer future for our students, and we need your help and every one of the community members. It is going to take up a lot of effort from the entire community to get us there. Lastly, I'd like to conclude this presentation with another quote this time from Mahatma Gandhi. "The future depends on what we do in the present." And now I'd like to thank everybody for being so good to me, having me here, listening, and hopefully you understood my Spanglish. And I'm going to open the floor for any questions if there are any. Lisa, go ahead, please. Okay.
Is there any question? Go ahead, Mr. Arizona.
Yes. There are 3 schools side by side on West Bears going towards them, maybe. I don't know the name of the schools, but the traffic is unbearable. People are going in the line is all the way back to the end. We need to do something about that. That is very dangerous because people are cutting out of the school line, cutting into the school line. I don't want the kids to get run over by cars because they are very impatient because the line is so long. Do anyone know what we can do about that?
Okay. What's the road name again? I didn't catch it.
The West Bears.
West Vance?
Bears.
Bears. Okay, Beers. Okay. Yes, Beers has challenges. Diana, I know Bob and Mike have done some improvements out there, like the lead pedestrian interval and some others. Are you aware of any other improvements in the more longer term that are anticipated?
At this moment, I just switched from being in one department to another. I'm with the project managers now, and I do have an intersection an intersection improvement that is coming up in Bears and Florida, which is progressing. We are already working on getting approval from the BOCC to continue to start the design, and we're waiting at that moment on this. But that's the only one that I am aware. However, there is one application in the county. You can Google it. It's called a CIP Capital Programs, I think. And you are able to, anybody can look into this application and this hub and find out information on upcoming projects that are going on, and the schedules.
Well, the issue is when they go to pick up their kids, the parents, when they go pick up their kids, the line is all the way on Bears Avenue, West Bears. The problem is they got 3 schools side by side.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to go down Bears, heading towards the Mary, the line is so unbearable and it's so dangerous because the people that is not going to the school are getting angry and cutting over in the other traffic. I had 3 cars cut me off yesterday when I was going down the road. Thank God I don't know what you're doing because they got ready for him. No signal, no warning, just cut over. And if he wasn't watching, I would have got hit.
Yes, this has been a historic problem. Hillsborough County is obviously aware and doing things to program for it. Matthew Pleasant is listening in. I know the school district's aware of it, so I'm sure any on-site things they're trying to do. I know that they're both agencies that are challenged with funding, but thank you for reiterating that, Arizona.
Right.
Is there any other questions for Ms. Ramirez? Any comments? Ms. Ramirez, I have one. Just hypothetically, there's 2 senators in the state of Florida that want to keep our time in one time zone and not change back and forth for daylight savings time. Will that affect this study at all if we get on one time year round?
I guess it's going to depend what time year round is going to be. Like right now, if it's winter time, if we're going to keep winter time year round, then it's still going to affect it because it's still dark in the winter time for the children. Now, if it's the summer, it probably is going to be a little better. We're still going to have issues because still children, students going to school early to do homework or meet with their getting for breakfast and stuff like that. But it will be a bit better, probably less expensive to provide so much lighting as well. If it's summertime, that is kept around summer time, yes, sir.
Ms. Ramirez, thank you very much for your report. Very well done. And again, thank you very much.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Have a good day.
All right, next we're going to hear about in-road safety lights.
Okay, I sent the invite to you. Okay, seeing your screen. Everything looks good.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We are a safety solution company with our focus is on roadway lighting. And what I would like to do in this presentation is to share with you the benefits of the in-road lights, the application, and how we can work together to be able to create safer environments in our streets and highways. First of all, most of you know that 52% of US fatalities happens at nighttime, while a quarter of the people are traveling in these roads. This is a national problem. On a state level, these are low lane departure, pedestrians. These crashes happens, and it's the same rates probably every year. We haven't really made a dent, the fatalities and injuries that takes place. Pedestrian and bicycle safety, as you know, unfortunately for us in the state of Florida, we're the #1 state, and we have issues that we all really need to encounter. Combined with the fact that we have distracted driving added to our list and inclement weather. And that puts us on the vision that we all share. Our goal is safety. Safety is #1 priority for us. And as you can see in the annual cost down below, we spend a lot of money on dealing with crashes. And it is the #1 leading death from the age 1 to 54. And I'm sure you are familiar with dangerous by design. We really haven't made a dent over the years. So these are major crashes that we deal with and types of drivers like speeding, distracted, aging, and impaired drivers. And usually we don't have any answers to those problems. And I think the reason being is our focus has been about trying to get a message to them. While we should be thinking the other way around, we should be thinking what they see, and that's what matters. So as a driver, as you can see in that cone of vision, like at 30 miles per hour, that small circle is really what the driver sees. So this is where we need to communicate. When you get a message, it has to be right there. In addition to the fact that it takes a driver like at 35 miles per hour by the time the perception reaction time, 250 feet to be able to stop. So we need them to be able to see it. And also we had to give them sufficient time to be able to react to it and stop in time. And that's why we are looking at ways that we need to look for different ways. The conventional tools are not getting the job done. We really need to look outside the box. So we have to look for innovative ideas that is self-educated, which is extremely important. And also we have other elements that are critical for us. We would like it to be sustainable. We would like it to be easy to install, cost effective. And in our applications here, we would like to meet FDOT approved and NUTCD compliant. First application I would like to talk to you about is, for example, crosswalks for pedestrians. As you can see in this picture over here, we are looking at the cone of vision, and this is the distance for a driver to be able to stop. We have two applications that we're going to introduce to you in a moment. One of them is a wire system, and the other one is highlighted crosswalk. The wire system is for mid-blocks, and the highlighted crosswalk can be used at any locations, like at signalized intersections or stop conditions to be able to provide better visibilities of crosswalk. In these two videos, the video to the top is for an application we installed in Escambia County up in the Panhandle area, and it is in combination with LED enhanced sign. The one at the bottom is in Palmetto Bay, and that is in a combination with RRFP. These two applications are approved by FDOT, and it allows a better visibility of the pedestrian crossing. Bless you. The highlighted crosswalk area is an area where it is at many locations. This is only at nighttime, and it is a double-sided white, so a driver will be able to see that crossing better than just the street lights. This is another application we are also working with FDOT right now on requesting FHWA, is to add red, steady red application in combination with signals or mid-block crosswalks like Hawk system. That's like one of the applications we are looking at right now with FDOT applied for a request to experiment with FHWA. We've done numerous locations. I would like to share with you one of them in Palmetto Bay. It's been over 2 years in operation, and it has been zero maintenance, and it's been very effective. The Escambia County, the picture that I showed you before, it involved retrofitting existing RRFP systems because they weren't as effective for crossing, and we added them, as you can see, with the LED enhanced signs and the in-road lights. This is a comparison of the applications that we currently have, the cost and the time that is involved into to be able to provide those applications. Bicycle facility. As we all know, about 45% of bicycle fatalities happen at nighttime or at dusk. And this is, as you can see in this picture to the left, you can see how highlighting a bicycle over here would be very effective to be able to see the tailgate of a red light between the white lights. This way it will provide the driver sufficient time to be able to react to bicyclists at nighttime. The application can be used on trails and any other applications that we think are feasible. Another application for us is the roadway departure crashes. Many curves, you really don't have enough time to be able to stop. As you can see in this picture over here, this is a 35 miles per hour really roadway, and has all the conventional tools for marking, signage, guardrail, and street lights. And yet that particular location, people still hitting the guardrail. Once we installed the in-road lights, as you can see in this picture, provided better guidance for the driver, and the guardrail maintenance became non-issue after that. As you can see, we placed the lights inside the travel way, and this creates an illusion to the driver that the road narrows at nighttime, and they tend to slow down. This is an application, first one of its kind right now. We installed this on the Florida Turnpike. It's on mile marker 166, north of Fort Pierce. There's a major roadway departure crashes at that time. And as you can see in this video over here, we're approaching from half a mile. We are traveling at 70 miles per hour on the Turnpike without the use of our headlights. So this is in essence almost like a runway, very effective to be able to guide the drivers through that curve. Keep in mind that this is a very dark highway, and also at the same time, when it's raining at nighttime, the visibility has been incredible. Many people commented how easy it is for them to be able to navigate through that curve. Wrong way crashes, as we all know, it has been a major problem for us to deal with it. Our approach is a little bit different than what conventionally has been used. As you can see in this picture, the confusion is that the driver can't tell if the entrance from the exit due to the close proximity of the entrance and the exit ramps. Like the red is obviously the wrong way application. And what we've done is that we applied an application where it is passive, which means that the lights are already active on all night long, steady red, so they can see this is a gate that they cannot enter, just like in this picture over here. And this is clear to a driver. This is a wrong way application, so it's active all night long. If we need to be able to communicate with the driver to activate after they enter the zone, then we can flash at them at that time. But this one, at least, it will be able to distinguish entrance from the exit. This is a very effective message for distracted, aging, or impaired drivers to be able to go ahead and see the difference between entrance and exit before they enter the zone. We placed about 5 lights inside each lane, and it looks just like a gate. If you go in the right way, you will see absolutely nothing because you drive on it. It looks just like a normal roadway. And if you go in the wrong way, you will see it from 1,000 feet, very easy with that red gate, as you can see in that picture. Roundabouts. Roundabouts are amazing safety tool, but still we have many conditions where people still go through the roundabouts and they hit the structures. As you can see over here, we're guiding the driver through the roundabout, and also we're showing them this is the roundabout area with the yellow light at the end of it. How many locations where we have medians, traffic separators that you really can't see at nighttime, and constant maintenance. This way we can highlight them to be able to create better visibility. Speed humps, speed tables, as you can imagine, also you can see them at nighttime, you're painting them all the time. This way we'll be able to provide a better guidance for the driver to be able to see it from a distance. It's endless, the applications that we can use for in-road lights. Again, the focus is to be able to provide a message right there between the headlights. We have the collective efforts that we had between the state FDOT and many construction and many engineers over 6 years of research and development to come up with a product that really fits our needs. And the object was to be able to provide a product that will be reliable, which is the number one. And number two, the ease of maintenance and replacement. And that's what I'm going to show you through the process of what takes place. This picture over here shows the solar unit that's embedded in the roadway. The black cup is a cup that stays in the pavement, and the unit can be ejected out at that time. Now I'll show you how we can do it for ease of maintenance. Reliability, we have been working with Ohio DOT, and I just want to show you this video over here. After half an hour of installation, we hit that unit like 8 times in each direction. As you can see, it sparks. So that's how resilient the unit has to be in order to be able to withstand those applications. So electronics are embedded in the roadway and protected. We are proud of many studies that has showed that in-road lights are really an effective tool. But I think 2 of our studies that we have been very related to us is the Florida Turnpike. We saw a reduction in speed over 70 miles per hour from 38 to 58%. That is really impressive for us. We did a before and after study. And another project that took place in Jacksonville, that's an S-curve. We highlighted the curve. It's the 5 years before we installed our lights, there were a total of 56 nighttime crashes. And the 2 years after we installed our lights, there was only 1 nighttime crash. So that was really a great eye-opener for us to know that we are on the right track. There are many letters of support and recommendations from many people, including bicycle associations, of requesting the need for in-road lights because it's safe for them. It is embedded in the roadway. It's less than 1/4 of an inch, very easy for them to travel on it without feeling any issues for them. The installation and availability of the statewide contracts to be able to purchase directly on the FDOT, APL, and piggyback contracts are available to be able to purchase both products. And again, both products are FDOT, APL approved. Installation, we have to invest in installation. It is very important. As you can see over here, this is a drilling machine that's attached to a Bobcat that we developed to make it easy. This is actual live. As you can see here, in 30 seconds, we'll be able to drill the hole, and then the material is pulverized. And as you can pick it up, as you can see in the person behind, one person clean it, and then the truck behind it, they applied the epoxy material where they will be able to go ahead and place the light. The epoxy is an important element. It is the same epoxy that's being used for snow plowable RPMs up north. It's a 2-part epoxy. It bonds very well with the pavement. It allows sufficient time for the installer to be able to put the unit, level it, and then after 15 minutes, you're ready to drive on it. Maintenance, this is a beauty of it over here, is that for us to be able to maintain the unit if needs to be, you eject it by air pressure, and you take it out, and then the cup stays in there, like for manual resurfacing or any other issues, and then you come back and press a new cup, and then you put the unit back in there. There is many areas like we talked about that we can make a difference. Obviously, safety is a team effort. It requires all of us to work together to be able to achieve our goal. Many areas that we can target, and our goal is your goal, obviously, to be able to provide a safety solution. And with that, I will be more than happy to take any of your questions.
Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question, Lisa and Joseph. This is Larry Josephson. I think that those are great treatments to use to highlight crosswalks and so forth. One thing that struck my attention was that at the very end here where you said you can pop the unit out of the ground for resurfacing and the cup remains in the ground. But we typically, when we resurface, we mill the pavement, up to, a couple inches sometimes. So those cups that are in the ground will have to be replaced. Do you have a cost of those replacements? I mean, is that all of those cups would have to be replaced? So do you have a procedure for that? Because those will be a throwaway.
You are definitely correct. And for example, we had a roundabout down in Miami Garden. and it was milled and resurfaced. They only went 1 inch. Our unit is 1.5 inches that goes in the pavement. So the cup has to be the reinstallation, which means we have to record the pavement and you have to purchase a new cup. That's the only thing that's going to be taking place. And that's only at the time, as you know, resurfacing takes place maybe once every 10 years to be able to use it at that application, or if it's a shorter time, that needs to be done. But yes, the cup has to be replaced and the reinstallation has to be reconducted to accomplish that goal.
Now, will that cup be easy to roll over in a wheelchair? If we're going to go to the crosswalk, is it level where you won't fall over it or you won't get stuck either with a wheelchair?
How do they perform with wheelchairs? So could you speak to like whether you can traverse over them in a wheelchair or if they would cause tipping in a crosswalk?
Yes, that's very important. Yes, our unit, as you saw in that picture, it is less than 1/4 inch above the surface, and it's a mushroom effect. So it is totally very smooth. You almost don't feel it as a wheelchair or a pedestrian or a bicyclist. You barely feel anything. So it is very, very safe. It is safer than an RPM because an RPM is almost 3/4 inch above the surface. We are totally flush with the ground almost. So it is very safe for pedestrians, bicyclists, motorcycles, and wheelchairs.
And an RPM is?
It's a reflective pavement marker, you know, the RPM.
Okay.
Yes.
That was going to be my question since you brought it up. Is that how do these compare cost-wise with those? Because we see those and those, you know, reflect and help us travel. We are not, even though it is in the group of RPM where we are, but we are really more closer to a street light. We are not, because an RPM, it is really almost an illusion for us as drivers because you can only see as far as your headlights will allow you to see. So that is 200 to 300 feet. That's why, like many locations where you will see on highways that with very few traffic on it, that the crashes increase because you don't have enough time to stop or to see the hazards. So we are more closer to a street light at a fraction of the street lights, you know, like 10% of the street lights for initial installation, not maintenance and so forth. For example, DOT and in District 4, we are going to have 50 miles of US 27 that is going to be used with our in-road lights in lieu of street lights to be able to eliminate the roadways and create safer environment. So we're more compared to a street light than actually an RPM. Right, I get that we're more effective and that's what you want to be compared to, but because that's where we go. I was just wondering, like, cost-wise, how do you compare when it's like lining the edge of the roadway? So I was just curious.
Oh no, I mean you can't. There is no comparison in cost because a typical reflector may be maybe maximum $10 installed, maybe $6 to $10 installed. While this one over here, you have major electronics in there, so you're going to $120 installed. So okay. it's totally different element. Right, that's why it's not really. We are a safety tool, and we are reusing it to be able to reduce crashes and also provide proper warning and elimination. So an RPM cannot do that. You know, right. That's we're totally different. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. And the RPMs do get, you know, damaged and stuff because they protrude. So there's probably more cost long term. Okay, I see some other members have unmuted, so perhaps there are some more questions.
This is Cal Hardy. I have a question. There are a few questions. Your RFB, the RFB example, is that controlled? How are they synced up with the push button? Is it through wired application or can it be through radio? That's one question. And then two, your green and red signal, does that meet MUTCD currently, or I know you're looking for, or are you applying for experimental use through state for consideration from FHWA?
Yes. The current system that we have right now, it is wired system. So it goes through the push button, or it will interface with existing signal controller or school crossings or whatever applications you would like it to have. So, or railroad, we have looked at railroad applications too. So it is directly connected to that system. We also used it for incident management with the Turnpike, where we can actually communicate with the ITS cabinet, and we also activate the lights at that time. So it's all wired application because we have to activate them day and night. So they have to be bright enough during the day to be visible too at the same time. So that's all the wired application. Now, the video that I shared with you, it was an idea that when I visited Dubai at that time, that's where that video came from. So the green application is not being introduced right now with the request experiment. We are only requesting right now through the state FDOT central office and also through District 5, FDOT District 5 in Orlando. There is Orange Blossom Trail. There are 6 crosswalks that we are going to be using the combination of a hawk system, a signal, and also our in-road lights. So we're going to activate first yellow. It's going to be flashing yellow, steady yellow, and then we're going to go to a steady red at that time. And then after the pedestrian crosses the street, then we're going to take that out. The steady red has been approved by FHWA in the past in California for a request to experiment. So what we're doing right now, we're providing this new application that will be specific for different pedestrian crossings. As you know, in engineering, it's not one size fits all. So we have an application that for these signalized locations where we're going to use the combination. So the RTE is being requested through the combination with FDOT District 5 and Central Office. That's being submitted for that request.
Okay, and your railroad, you said railroad application, that is another one where you're looking at, the reason why I'm asking is because I'm actually thinking more on streetcar, because we have driveways and stop control intersections with our streetcar system. And our streetcar it's single track, or it's bi-directional on, running on one side of the road, so people aren't necessarily looking the right way when they're coming out of a driveway. But I was wondering if you had, that might be some kind of solution for, like, it would be activated as a streetcar comes along, and then it would blink red when there's a streetcar coming from either direction at a driveway, alerting people to stop. So I'd be interested in hearing more about that application as it goes through in Orlando for sure.
Absolutely, yes, I will be more than happy. I mean, you have my contact information. We can bring it up to speed. We can definitely do any color and any activation associated with any system. So this way it will allow the opportunity for us to be able to explore those ideas. That's the whole purpose here. It's really up to our creativity to be able to create the proper message to create a safer environment. And that's what we were looking at. Like the railroad tracks, we tested the system with the railroad controllers, and we activate the flashing red. Like when the gates come down, they will be able to activate at the same time. So you can definitely use it for many applications, and that would be a great application to be able to locate it and do it.
Okay, so in your current state, you are an extension of the striping. So basically, the current status is that we can use that product as far as anywhere we're going to put an RPM. Basically, we can enhance the white with the white light. We can enhance the yellow with the yellow light. But is that correct? That's my understanding of it.
Yes, you can use it for that, and also the red. You have the steady red can be used anywhere. And now the steady red with the signal is a new application that we're introducing. But steady red, like for wrong way driving, right? Well, yeah, we can use that anytime. That's already approved by DOT and METCD to be used at any time. All steady applications are okay.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, yes, sir.
Are there any other questions?
We have a question in the chat. It sounded like you might have answered it in your discussion with Cal Hardy, but are there any talks to implement this in the Tampa Bay area? Is Orlando the closest example?
That's what we're hoping to be able to assist here in the Tampa Bay area. And I know recently there were further discussions with MPO about looking for applications for pedestrians and many other locations. So that's definitely the tool that's going to be able to help address many safety concerns in the Tampa area. We're excited to have the opportunity to help.
Right. Well, maybe some of our cities will reach out then. Anybody else?
Hey, Lisa, just real quick, this is Cal Hardy again. Can we get a copy of their actual presentation with the videos in, rather than just the PDF copy? Would that be
Absolutely.
able to be distributed?
Yep, I'll do that.
Okay, great.
Lisa, I sent you a chat earlier, but is there any way that maybe the MPO can sponsor or work with someone on putting together a Vision Zero vendor fair where you can get some of the ops, maintenance, and procurement people to see some of these? I know this is a great starting point in all these committees, but we need to get it in front of the procurement people and the ops and maintenance guys who make those decisions to really get some wholesale deployment rather than just spot treatments. The other thing was, for the vendor, you need to come up with some lifestyle costs so that when you get the questions on the resurfacing and things like that, you know how much your incremental costs are being added, because that's what's going to drive some of those decisions on those. And like you said, you're talking every 10 years, 7 to 10 years for a resurfacing at best. So, it's not as bad as it sounds. I just want to, but if we need some, life cycle costs would be something that would really help when we're discussing with people who are actually putting together project cost sheets and stuff. That's all. By the way, I love the product. I think that we need more heavy visuals like that. I think it helps, and I really like that. Thank you.
Thanks for speaking up, Bob. I saw your note and I forgot to mention it, so thank you. That's a great idea, especially post-COVID. We'll get it.
All right, thank you very much for the presentation. Let's hear from Hart with the Flamingo Flares update.
Okay. Linda, we're not hearing you yet, so please unmute and take it away. Let me go see if she's here. Okay, says you're self-muted. Darn it. Can you say something now? I made you an organizer to see if that would help fix it. Or Jason?
Lisa, this is Jason. It looks like her audio connection is gone.
Yeah. Okay. Linda, maybe you can rejoin us and we'll move on to the next presentation. And when you rejoin, maybe it'll fix it. And I'll watch and move you over right away. Okay. Does that work for you, Councilman?
It surely does. Do we have someone from Parking Management Strategies, Karen Kretz?
Well, I believe we're going to start with Christine first because she's got the higher level discussion. And so let me make Christine presenter while we sort Linda out. All right, Christine Williams, sent it over to you.
All right, sorry, I just took took a little short break, so I didn't realize I
I
was
know.
next.
We stick.
So hi everybody, and good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today about parking management. I know that was a topic of interest to you, so I volunteered to share some ideas and thoughts on the topic. Why parking management? There are a lot of different impacts, obviously, of surface parking. It's expensive, costs about $5,000 or more for a surface lot and $21,000 a space for a garage space. And it represents about 10% of your building development costs. So it particularly, and even more in areas with high land values. So it can be quite costly for the developer who can recoup that money in profit for each unit of reduced parking requirements. It also adds to the cost of a residential unit, anywhere from 15 to 30%. And providing a lot of parking to accommodate peak demand also consumes a lot of land for other more valuable uses. And it reduces densities and spreads development out over a larger area, as you can see just in this image here, with these large surface parking areas that make it longer to walk to where you need to go, hinders that trip and use of public transit because you're a pedestrian at either end. Cheap and convenient off-street parking really also offers no disincentive to driving. On the contrary, it promotes increased use of vehicles. That leads eventually to more traffic congestion, air pollution, and we know poor public health. It certainly increases obesity. We've seen that in our country. And it's something of a cycle because that traffic congestion then results in wider streets, bigger intersections, and even higher parking requirements. There are just a lot of reasons why we want to reduce and manage parking, including the fact that it generates heat. Your parking lots can generate as much as 20 to 40 degrees higher air temperatures in certain areas of the city and cause that heat island effect. It says here that, parking can be as much as 20 to 30% of downtown core areas. I think we have quite a bit of parking in downtown Tampa. I've certainly experienced the heat islands walking across campus. The other issue when we talk about driving alone and trying to reduce driving alone is that free or subsidized parking from employers is really an incentive to drive alone to work. And this report's a little older, it's 1990, but still is a valid look at the topic that, many employers reimburse parking or provide it free on premises or they, support it in some way. But when the employers reduce or remove those subsidies, a lot of solo drivers will shift to carpools and other modes. And that really holds true regardless of the context, like mid-Wilshire here. These are neighborhoods in LA on the left here. This is a diverse and compact, diverse area. And with subsidized parking, 42% were driving to work alone, and that reduced to 8% in cases where the driver was required to pay for that. So, that's another issue to consider. And regardless of the context, I think that there's some benefit to addressing it from a policy perspective. Parking in the multimodal environment, we know in areas, look at this example here, is this a area where It's very comfortable to walk. There is a sidewalk, but the density of uses is rather low. And on the opposite side of the road, there's a large parking area to get to the other use. So it would be quite a walk across. And so establishing some limits on that in urban core areas really will help reinforce non-auto modes and make it safer to walk and circulate on foot. So you could take some of that right of way back in a core area, add the sidewalk, add street trees for comfort, and add some on-street parking to further separate the pedestrians from traffic as well. And that parking could be managed through different pricing strategies. For example, if you wanted people to visit to turn over more quickly, raising the pricing of the on-street parking, and also providing transit options so that there's more than one way to access these areas. There was a study by the National Association of City Transportation Officials, NACDO. It found that a metered parking space might only serve 15 vehicles a day, but a bus stop can serve 1,000 riders. And then if you add car share options into these areas, one zip car might reduce up to 13 personally owned vehicles in your denser urban areas. So adding that density and creating that street wall in an active urban core area involves managing parking and providing different ways to access those areas. So parking management is just a whole host of techniques that look at more efficient use of parking resources. We've got your pricing, like your cash out options to allow to incentivize basic different behaviors, and your employer can allow you to cash out, for example, accept a cash payment for give up a parking space, or those different durations of parking, long-term versus short-term parking rates, and so forth, and providing alternatives, encouraging modes that decrease the need for parking or offer bike parking, van pool subsidies, different types of options, as well as perhaps remote parking with shuttle services. You see that in airports, universities, beach areas. Some popular regulatory methods of parking management strategies are parking maximums, shared use parking, increasing the capacity of existing parking by regulating length of stay. We're going to talk about a few of these in a moment. And then just convenience, how convenient is it to get from one to another? You get to your location and find that parking space. Are there, smart meters and other methods that tell you that the parking is available in the location that you're headed to? So park, that was, so what can you do? Think about, number one, re-looking at all those minimum parking requirements, because we know historically that they tend to be a little on the generous side. Conventional parking requirements come from trip and parking generation studies of ITE. They're often based on land uses in areas that offer free parking and that lack transit and a rich array of options. So that becomes your self-fulfilling prophecy in that regard. And they're also often based on a limited number of studies. I see that this is going to be updated this fall, it says, 2021. They're going to add a lot more multimodal data. And yet we've also had the pandemic, so there may be some challenges in that regard. But parking requirements can also be tailored based on density and transit access, availability of options, income of the area, localized studies. So I would imagine that there's quite a lot of good information out there on what to do with your parking requirements that's a little bit more creative and perhaps tailored specifically to you. several cities now are getting rid of minimum parking requirements, which is your traditional way of regulating parking, either citywide or in specific districts. And there's just a few here. Over in Europe, they're even more aggressive. In England and Germany, there's they really have quite a lot more variation on this theme. And the interesting, I thought there's so many different ways to do this, but I did see that it could, if you really want to offer some flexibility, you can do it as a transferable entitlement. Sorry, my basset hound wants to get out here. A transferable parking entitlement where some of that parking can be transferred or sold to another development, like your on-site density transfers or your transfer of development rights programs. So that's kind of an interesting variation on the theme, I think. But it does allow for some greater attention to the impacts. Park wants development, and there's a lot going on in this slide. I hope you can see it on your home computers or at work, but we know from our experience that managing parking and providing mixed-use development, you can see almost twice the land area on the right that is available for building as opposed to parking. And it really increases the productivity and accessibility of those areas. You can access them, park once, access them on foot, going shopping, working, and school or play areas. And there are a lot fewer trips on the arterial system, whereas your alternative here, which is our typical suburban single-use development with lots of plenty generous parking, making it very easy to drive, but it makes it very difficult to walk or use any other mode. And as a result, there are a lot of trips going from one use to another, circulating on the arterial system, creating traffic conflicts, more congestion, as well as safety issues. Here's another strategy that I thought was quite interesting, where is to unbundle the cost of parking from rent. So this allows cheaper rents, basically for residents in denser urban areas where there are more non-auto transportation options. They might be able to cycle to work or ride public transportation or walk, and or use a zip car, for example, if they needed it, to forego parking if they don't want to own a car. And that parking space then is not something they would necessarily need to continue to subsidize. On the right, I love the little sales pitch, bin the parking mins. This is in Auckland, how one silly little rule is ruining Auckland. And they ask, why do we have to have 2 off-street parking spaces for each unit? Why don't we let people decide and unbundle that? Smart parking, there's all kinds of apps and technology out there. I can't say that I'm an expert on them, but I've certainly heard of several that are available that would monitor the availability of parking. I know in San Francisco, you can have an app to see where are the parking spaces available in your area. Helps you find your parking space quickly. You're not circulating around, causing more congestion and energy use and emissions downtown, as well as anxiety. I think people get anxious when they can't find a parking spot and they're busy on their way to work or wherever they need to be. And they're also pay by phone options as well. So that makes it quite convenient. And these intelligent systems are cropping up more and more. And a whole host of other strategies, residential permits for spillover concerns. And that residential permitting, you could deed restrict new buildings that are coming online from participating in the residential permit, or switch to market pricing when it becomes a hunting license. I think parking and wayfinding we just mentioned. Curb management is an emerging area, just ripe for all kinds of attention, since we have so many new emerging uses or modes, I'm sorry, and services that could be available to the traveler. And cities are starting to see the curb as a valuable commodity and charging for use of that curb space. And that's another, varying that charge based on demand is another strategy, as well as ready enforcement, and also offering bike lanes and bike parking, bus stops on the curb, areas also for the Uber and Lyft, and passenger pickups in that regard, and delivery space, of course, for freight. So some cities are adopting policies that are actually prioritizing reliable transit and safe bicycling infrastructure first, like bike share, followed by other uses like deliveries and passenger pickups and green infrastructure, or even parklets and small public spaces, as well as managed parking and kind of using pricing to manage those strategies. ITE has a curb management practitioner's guide out. You can Google ITE curb management practitioner's guide and it'll pop up. And I just downloaded that the other day. It looks very interesting. And special parking districts where you're going to reinvest revenue in streetscaping or even transit. I think Orlando has that, where they invest parking fees as well as impact fees in streetscaping and other amenities. And more areas are starting to think about it also in a more comprehensive planning context. This is a little older, but the City of Delray Beach Parking Management Plan. One of the things they mention is that the success of a citywide parking system doesn't depend only on the adequate provision of parking facilities, but on how well those parking facilities are connected to the ultimate destination and other modes of transportation that might be used in the city. So starting to put it into a comprehensive planning context for a city makes a whole lot of sense. So that is it for me. A quick overview of parking management, and I will let's see, stop sharing my screen here.
Okay.
Is there any questions?
Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to take questions now, or do you want to have Ms. Crust do hers and then do collective questions? Your
Let's
choice.
go ahead and have Ms. Crest do hers also, and then we can do collective. Thank you.
Okay. All right. You should have control, Karen.
Okay. Let's see. So how do I pull up the presentation?
Do you have it up on your screen and ready to go?
I do.
Okay. You just have to accept the presenter thing that I just sent you.
I
and
did
share.
that. Mm-hmm.
We're not seeing your thing. Jason, is there another step she has to do?
Under the sharing, no, we can see it now, I think.
You can see it.
Should be the front screen,
Oh, yeah,
downtown.
I'm seeing it. Okay, sorry, I have too many things open. I'm trying to keep going. Yeah, I see it. It's beautiful. Great.
Okay, thank you. All right. Hey, everybody. Christine, that was a great segue to the parking plan that we did for downtown Tampa. It's been a couple years, and really what instigated it is, well, I should say I work with the Tampa Downtown Partnership. I focus on transportation and planning issues, but it didn't really matter what the meeting topic was. Parking came up under everything. So we decided we needed to put together, kind of the first comprehensive plan. And if you ask 9 out of 10 people, how do we solve downtown's parking problem? The answer was the city needs to build a new parking garage. So we started with a lot of data collection, and we basically went, well, let me start with this slide. It's not the most beautiful thing, but I asked our consultant just quickly do a layout of downtown Tampa and show all of the parking versus the green space that we have. So when you look at this slide, it helps you come to the conclusion that maybe another parking garage isn't the most prudent answer at this time. So, as I mentioned, we did a lot of data collection. We basically went to every single parking lot, parking garage, found them all, counted how many spaces were there, what the surface was, how many ADA spaces, et cetera, both public and private, mapped it all out. And then we went and we did occupancy counts at different times of the day, different times of during the week, weekend, and we did that for a couple years. So you can see here that the city does operate, a fair amount of parking, but it's certainly not all. We have about 24,000 spaces in our downtown. So what we found from our occupancy counts is that even at the busiest time of the day, the peak demand, we still had 6,000 parking spaces available. That doesn't necessarily mean that all those parking spaces are available where people want them, or it really leads to the fact that we need shared parking. Shared parking is going to be one of our best solutions that is surprisingly hard. But right now, the pricing's not set up to make rational choices. Parking was always kind of a political issue, as Councilmember Citro can assure you. The city hadn't really raised parking prices since 2004. It was ironically one of the first things I worked on in my job. I've been here for quite a while. It just became kind of a political issue because nobody wants to be the one to raise parking prices. So the private sector was charging about double what the city was charging, even though the city's facilities for the most part are in kind of the juiciest parts of the central business district or wherever people want to be. We also found, and this has been corrected now, but we also found that our on-street parking was oftentimes cheaper than our off-street parking. Your on-street parking is obviously going to be your most convenient spaces that are meant to have constant turnover. We also did not charge for those spaces on nights and weekends. That has since been altered as of January 1st of this year. So this parking plan will take many years, I think, to implement, but we're definitely heading in the right direction. The city's parking budget in my almost 18 years in my job has never been it's always been in the red. And it's not really fair for the general fund to be subsidizing, downtown Ybor City parking. So, I love the strategies of other cities using excess parking funds to improve the streetscape or even run a circulator, but we have to get to the point where, the parking division isn't bleeding money. So you can see here what some of the average pricing was. The city did make changes, I believe it was in November or maybe December, to adjust the prices. That the city is still less expensive than the private sector, I think, which is fine. It was also important to offer a wide range of prices. We're certainly not trying to make everything really expensive. The most close-in parking should probably cost the most, and then those fees will continue to adjust. I think it's over a 3 to 5 year time period. But you can see here, this is by supply and peak utilization, so you can see which lots here are being used and which ones are less used. This is a couple slides that talk about the wait lists. The way the city had structured it is you could be on, I think it was 3 wait lists. There was no charge. And so the wait lists had, literally hundreds and hundreds of names on them. You can see here what the wait list density is compared to the number of spaces that are available. To my knowledge, there's still only 1 or 2 city-owned facilities that don't have a wait list. Everything else is still, still has a lot of names on it. One of our recommendations was to start managing the wait list. So now the city limits you to 2. And then I believe at the end of your year on the wait list, there will be a small fee to continue on that wait list. So we can really kind of gauge really what the market is. But you can also observe that, we have small block sizes in our downtown, and you can really walk just about anywhere in 10 to 12 minutes. So even though we might call it remote parking or perimeter parking, I don't think any of it is, all of it seems to be within a reasonable walk distance. Customers have no incentive to ask for anything different. We are set up totally for monthly parking. Sorry, I think these slides are a little bit out of order. Okay, so let me go back. Let me go back to this slide. Actually, this slide. So one of the reasons that we drew the conclusion that people are willing to walk if the price is less expensive is that you can see these percentages here. For instance, the Pierce Street and the Royal Regional up at the top, those have really long waiting lists because those are less expensive. Whereas the Fort Brook Garage, which is pretty centrally located, has a smaller waiting list. So even though everybody thinks that no one's willing to walk in our downtown, I think that some of that shows. You can see the Selman lots, at 200%, for instance. So we think that people would be willing to walk if the price was right for them, which is why we also thought it was important to maintain that variety of prices. And by the way, this observation here, it was very true. We did lots of different stakeholder groups as part of this process. One of them was the parking operators. They certainly had a key role to play in this, and they do maintain, I think, like 2/3 of the parking inventory. This talks a little bit to what Christine was saying about unbundling the rent from the parking. It's surprising how hard some of this is. It feels like it would be a no-brainer to me, but I guess the way that a lot of these apartment complexes that have already been built are set up, they're just, the financial lending team isn't comfortable with not including the parking space with the unit costs, which is a shame. So hopefully this will be a good opportunity for us moving forward. But you can see that parking absolutely impacts affordability. We do have one residential building. It was an adaptive reuse of an old commercial office building right there on Madison Street. It's called 220 Madison. They were really the first to try to develop with no parking because there wasn't already any parking there. So they ended up going after a model that has kind of a shared space for college students. And it's a very reasonable walk to the University of Tampa. Unfortunately, the developer felt that they needed to still provide a shuttle, even though it's a 10-minute walk to campus. And I believe that shuttle is very well used. They also have scooters and Coast Bike Share, including a free Coast Bike Share membership for all people who live in the units right outside the door. And then, of course, they have access to, HART in the downtowner service. I thought this image was interesting. I came across it where, it basically shows you the layout of a 2-bedroom apartment versus how much size it takes for 2 parking spaces, and it's about the same. So that helps put things in perspective. So these are our recommendations. Again, this parking plan was officially done in 2019, but it's going to take a number of years to work through the recommendations. Culture change is not easy. And especially when you're making adjustments to pricing. It's not going to be a real popular process, but it's hard to argue that it doesn't need to happen, especially when you try to put it in the context of climate change. So, we try to do consensus information building at the beginning. We continue to do that. Thankfully, Mayor Castor and her whole team have been very willing and able partners in this. There's a whole laundry list of kind of what's coming next. Some of the strategies that Christine mentioned, some of the strategies Christine mentioned, such as curbside management. The city ended up hiring our parking consultant to create a curbside management plan. I hope to see that roll out very soon. I mentioned that some on-street policies have changed. So now all meters in our downtown are enforced till midnight. There was a relaxation of that on Sunday mornings from, I think, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. to handle some of that crowd. But otherwise, you're going to see enforcement of the meters in all of downtown, potentially moving into Tampa Heights. That's the area we're focused on next, later this year. We also have been working with a lot of the stakeholders, such as the Tampa Theater, the Masonic Lodge, the Straz Center, the Arena, to just help mitigate some of the negative impacts this has had for them. One change I think we're going to see is a lifting of the 2-hour maximum requirement at on-street spaces. That's been hard. For instance, someone who's going to come to the Straz Center, the show's probably going to be more than 2 hours. The city does have an RFP out, or will be releasing it very soon, to have a wider variety of parking apps for your payment options. And that might help us include things like congestion pricing. So for instance, during those peak demand times, the prices might get higher, or maybe if after you've stayed for 2 hours, the price will start to go up each hour. So at that point, maybe an off-street lot would be the best choice for you. There's I think kind of a lot to come. About a year ago, we started conversations with the city about what the development codes could be and how they might change. We talked about parking minimums versus parking maximums, how we can really build in incentive for shared parking. Again, we have hundreds and hundreds of parking spaces that sit empty because they don't want to have more than one use at a time. And don't even get me started on the 24/7 reserved parking spaces that are, just for one person who's, probably right now even barely coming to work. Certainly multimodal is very important in how you move around from parking space to where you need to be. We've implemented a residential parking program in the Channel District. I believe there's one coming up in the Tampa Heights area because of all the spillover armature works traffic that has started there. Certainly always focused on how we can add more bike parking to help reduce the amount of car parking. Shared parking, shared parking, shared parking. I just want to say that again. We've started to, getting back to bike parking, we started to certify a couple of the buildings as a bicycle-friendly business building. So that's another strategy we're going to continue to work on. The bike rooms that some of these new developments have built are undersized, and they're already regretting not making those bigger because they're running out of places for residents who can store their bikes. We've implemented 4 parklets in our downtown. That was something that no administration up until Mayor Castor was willing to do, so that's been fun. So I could go on and on and on, but I'll stop here in the interest of time and be happy to answer any questions.
All right, Lisa, shall we go ahead and take the questions from both Ms. Williams and Ms. Kress at this time? I see some stuff on the chat.
Yes, I think that would be great. I'll take back the presentation. I've been taking care of the technical issues for Linda, so I'm not maybe seeing the same questions you're seeing. Oh, here's one. Is the money earned by charging for parking not just funneled back into parking enforcement or parking tracking?
Well, my understanding, and maybe Councilmember Citro understands it better, but the parking division is an enterprise fund. So any money that is, basically they're supposed to break even. So any money that is brought in by parking should stay, to make different improvements or maybe improve the technology. For instance, a couple of things they've done recently that I didn't even mention is they're moving to license plate recognition. They've rolled it out, I think, in the convention center parking garage and the PO garage so far. So if any of you have parked there, basically you're paying now by your license plate. It's a little bit less interaction with the machine. It makes it a smoother process for everybody. But yeah, it's an enterprise fund. Did I get that right, Joseph?
Yes, you did. And to jump in on your statement earlier, that there are some people that do not want to use parking that's further out simply because there's no way for them to walk either in the heat or in the rain. We could take some of the money collected from parking and put it more toward the downtown or other forms of transportation, so that trolleys type of thing, where rubber wheel trolley, where people can park further out, maybe at a discounted rate, jump on this and then take this into work. The 10, 12 blocks or so. But yes, you are correct, Ms. Kress.
And then Christine, did you have something about that? I thought you had an example in your presentation about collection in a special area to go towards other uses like
Right.
space.
I recall that, and I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I recall these special parking district agreements that are special parking districts set up as basically similar to a special assessment districts, that part of the parking revenues in those districts goes back into streetscape amenities to make it more walkable, bikeable, adding benches and so forth in those areas. So that's another option.
And then the follow-up.
It makes it more palatable. Even if there is an increase in fees, at least you can see, kind of what that's buying you. We've got to get the city's parking, the budget full, whole first though, before we can start doing that.
Okay. And then the follow-up is this only successful in areas where there are alternative transportation opportunities, i.e. more densely populated areas?
Well, parking management, as I quickly ran through, is a whole host of strategies that work in different contexts. So for example, your remote parking and shuttle, I've seen that used in beach areas to allow people to park further away from the beach and then take the shuttle in to the beach or airports and universities and so forth. So that's a more suburban context. And so I think that and of course, we need to start thinking about just the parking requirements themselves. Are they excessive? And that applies to everybody. And can we manage that parking a little bit more effectively, even in a suburban area? Shared use parking, Karen mentioned. My gosh, we see a lot of areas where the peak parking demand occurs at different times of day. So that would be an opportunity for shared parking. And then moving also parking to the side or rear of buildings is another common strategy that we're starting to see. If you have a corridor where you have transit service, for example, and you're emphasizing, let's say you have a bus rapid transit corridor, you want to protect that curb for transit and the pedestrian and get the parking to the side or the rear of buildings. And we're seeing those sorts of strategies being used in Charlotte, for example, in transit-oriented corridors. So there are a lot of different ways to mix and match. That's what makes it an interesting topic.
And then when this came up for the committee last month, it was in regards to how parking management strategies could be supportive or impact use of transit. Do either of you have things to say about that?
I remember hearing years ago, I think it was Seattle, it may have been Portland, of course, right, somewhere in the Northwest, that they structured their parking requirements with new development by how many blocks off the streetcar line it was. So for instance, if you're within a block or two of the streetcar line, the developer had to build 0 parking spaces. Maybe 2 blocks off, it's 1 per unit, and it adjusts from there. So that's, I think, a pretty pretty simple to understand strategy.
Hey, can you hear me? This is Justin Willis.
Yes.
Hey, yeah, as your lovely committee person who requested this item, I apologize for everybody who's heard this a few times, but thanks for making Councilman Citro the most informed council member on parking as of this moment. But I just had a few takeaways, and I want to just chime in from the transit side. One of the big things, you know, I've only been here like 7 or 8 years, but I just remember Hart used to use this stock photo of a bus traveling through downtown, what is now Water Street. Used to be a bunch of surface parking, and it was driving past a sign that said $2 to park all day, when that's the same price as a one-way bus fare. And like, that's what transit has been competing against for the last 40 years as it's existed here is, and as we see, and one of the big things about making the policies and raising the rates and making it more transit supportive is we're seeing this, you know, more people moving into the urban core than have historically been here for a long time. And when you move here from somewhere else, like I did, from like a DC or a transit-rich environment, one of the first things you do is look at, you know, you think about where transit is. Do I have to drive to work? And when you get here, you say, okay, transit's not great, but all right, what's the parking policy where I work? So, and then you probably, if you work downtown or if you work in West Shore, there's like a 90% chance you get free parking with your job. You know, I think that's pretty true. Probably not as high of a percentage in downtown, but definitely in West Shore. So what you do, as soon as you move here, you make a decision on where to live. And if you know you have free parking downtown, you're then very less prone to looking at what the transit options are to get you from your home to that place. So by making these policies and making the price incentive just tick up a little bit by not providing the cheapest parking on street, raising the rates in those exterior or interior parking garages and lowering them as you move out from the core, really help address behavior on the front end as we expect tens of thousands of people to move here every year. So it's really, you know, it's a short-term game, but also a really long-term game. And I just kind of wanted to highlight that. But I heard some great things from Christine and Karen, but I highlighted a few of them. The business turnover for raising rates on the street. A lot of the local businesses like to push back against the parking rates. This is actually something that's better for them and their turnover, especially when we're charging at night and on the weekends when those tower residents like parking curbside, even though they have a spot on the 3rd floor or something. You know, those maximum parking requirements are a huge deal. And then I heard Christine also say, you know, prioritize bike share, scooter, and bike lanes. And we've done a great job of that in the last 5 years. So while transit's still lacking, we've got a ton of other modes that are available to these folks, even the downtowner, hopefully some circulators soon. And I love hearing that if we can get some, you know, the subsidies having to support parking, that's just, you know, terrifying as a transportation planner. But, you know, if we can get some of those funds towards circulator service and downtowner type services, we can start connecting those cheaper lots and not disincentivizing people to try these other modes. And that's really all I got. I know we need to move on, and Linda's probably waiting. So hi, Linda. Yeah. Thanks for putting this on the agenda, and everybody, really appreciate it. It's great. Great to hear.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
Lisa, this is Gus. I'd like to make a couple comments, please.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. Karen, when we were talking about bicycle month 2 years ago, one of the problems we seemed to have, particularly at the county, was people were locked into a single usage of transportation for the month. So thus, a number of people said, I will take the bus 2 or 3 days a week, but you either get a bus subsidy or you get a parking subsidy, and that was it. So that's something, and I don't know who would have those discussions, but you can't switch. So you either get one or the other. And that came up in that meeting 2 years ago. Who controls the zip cards? I heard zip card mentioned numerous times. It's a method that I use, but there's only 7 cars downtown, and most of them are used by the university students. So I'm not sure who is putting them out, or they're just determining, okay, this is what the market bears and this is all we're putting out. But those are, I can tell you, even the 3 that are sitting in the airport are in constant usage now. Karen, I heard you say something about Sunday mornings that's being stretched out. I was hoping that was with the churches in mind, because a number of the churches lost their free parking in the last 2 years, and Sunday morning parking is a mess, at least near Sacred Heart. And my last point is, as somebody who does bike in the area, and I was lucky enough to have an employer that provided a shower, there needs to be some place that people can change, particularly if they bike into work in the morning. What I would do is I would put my bike on the bus in the morning and then bike home in the afternoon. But that's another option. There are these bicycle repair things now around the city, but a person is not going to bike to work in Tampa in July when they have 5 inches of sweat on them just in the morning. Just points to be made.
Although I'm pretty sure that people in Boulder, Colorado bike to work year round in snow. So yeah, I don't know if you want me.
It's nicer out there though.
I will, Gus, in the interest of time, I'll do an offline conversation with you. I mean, you bring up a lot of really good points.
Okay, thanks.
Any other further questions? Hearing none, Ms. Kress, Ms. Williams, thank you very much for your report today.
Thank you.
Okay, we worked with Linda during the last presentations. Hopefully oh, yay. It looks like she's
I
successful.
hope so.
Yeah.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll continue the conversation on transit. Linda Crescentini, Interim Chief Financial Officer and Director of the Project Management Office for HART. And I'm here today to give you a quick overview of the Flamingo Fares and its components and how critical it is to our infrastructure. So next, please. So in discussing the Flamingo Fares overview, I'm going to name some of the benefits. So the features, the distribution network, the support system, the e-fare timeline, project expenses, and we may skip a couple of these in reference to time. So availability of functionality, the Tableau reporting dashboard, our Title VI compliance, and our marketing and communication. Next, please. So what is Flamingo Fares? Flamingo Fares is an electronic fare payment system. It is a contactless smart card to the left. It has the mobile application functionality and barcode reader, as well as the ability to support and integrate new ways. So Apple Pay, Google Pay, Apple Watch. That will be one of the new features that's coming farther down, farther this year. I would say in fall. What's up and operational right now? So you have the Flamingo app. You can download that. Flamingo Fares. There's a couple of Flamingo apps out there. So go to Flamingo Fares on Google Play or the Apple Store. Or currently, the cards are available at our customer service center. There is a one-time $3 cost for a new card and a replacement card. Next, please. And you can skip that. And next. Okay, so this is a regional project. HART looked at our regional partners. Maybe go back one, please. Sorry, I might have told you to skip too far. So where is it installed? We have our regional partners include Hernando, which is called the bus, Hillsborough, obviously us, Pasco for PCPT, Pinellas, PSTA, and the Jolly Trolley, and Sarasota at SCAT. So this gives you one card or one ability to pay throughout the Tampa Bay region. Next, please. What are some of the benefits? So fare capping, pay as you go. This is probably one of the best benefits with the system. And what's happened in the past is we have folks in the region that cannot afford a monthly pass, right? So they wind up paying much more because they pay day to day. With fare capping, you pay as you go. So you can be capped out on the daily rate, which if you're a regular customer or discount customer, you can see at the bottom, regular one way is $2. You'll never be charged more than $4 max, because once you hit that $4, no matter how much you ride that day, it's free. And then the monthly mat is $65. And if you have the discounted fares, that's below that, obviously. But this helps so many of our customers that cannot afford to buy that monthly pass, but they will be maxed out at $65 rather than, I think if they rode every day, it's closer to over $100. So that's probably the biggest benefit with this. The other benefit is it's contactless. So today with COVID, there's no money exchanging hands. You can travel throughout the region, like I had mentioned. And then one of the other benefits of the system is balance protection. So this is an account-based system. It's not, your balance is not on the card. So in the account-based system, all the money stays on the account, even if you lose your phone, or say you change your phone out and you get a new phone. If it's lost or damaged, your account balance is protected. You do need to go out there and register your account so that you can prove who you are if you do need to recover that balance. But it gives you protection for the card as well as for the phone accounts. And for us, it's contactless and it's faster boarding time than instead of someone looking for change. Next, please. So we had to go back to the board because there's fare structure changes. So our board policy tells us that if we make any changes to the fare structure, we have to go back for their approval, which we did in December. So we are in a transition period right now where we have both systems up and operational. We have our old fare policy from January 1st through July 1st is still open and operational. And then our new Flamingo fare structure, which will basically we'll retire the old fare policy and we'll move ahead with this. This is the discontinuation of the magnetic stripe cards, paper passes. We did have to ask for a $3 one-time fee. It allows us to do the fare capping monthly and daily. And just as a note, there is a $5 online mobile app or website, or if you load in the stores, you have to load at least $5 for our retail partners. Next, please. This is great for the folks who do use the discounted Flamingo cards, because currently, in order to qualify for reduced fares today, they must meet the eligibility requirements, and with that, show an ID. With the new Flamingo card, the ID is, when they come into our service center, their photograph is put on the back, so they're tapping the card, and also their ID is on the back. So it's one form of identification versus two. Next, please. So with our distribution network, we're doing field integration testing right now with retail networks, but what is up and operational? So you can register in our transit centers, you can get on the Flamingo app like I had mentioned earlier. We also have the ability for institutional and corporate portals. This is for like the University of South Florida. I don't know how many students they have, but say they have 60,000 students. They can add and delete as they needed for each of those students. They can manage their own accounts versus Hart trying to manage that for them. So we can also do registration through the website. The retail network, like I said, is field integration testing now, but you'll be able to go to any place that have the J hooks. If it's one of our partners like Publix, 7-Eleven, Circle K, just like you would buy a gift card off of the McDonald's or Wendy's gift card, you'll also be able to purchase and load accounts on your account-based system flamingo fairs. So it'll give you easy access out in the community. We also have an IVR system, which is just basically for folks that don't use website or mobile phones. They can call in just like your banking service. You can find out what your recent history is. You can also reload through the IVR system. And we have auto load. So you have auto protection similar to your bank if you want to transfer money from your checking to savings. In this case, if you hit a certain balance on your account, it will automatically replenish that account from the account that you gave it. Next, please. I'll go through this really fast. This project affects every single department within our agency. So finance, marketing, IT, technology, operations. We have internal folks as well as external that are supporting it. Next, please. So it's taken a while, and some folks are saying, why on earth is this taking so long? A typical project will take 3 to 5 years. With our partners that I had mentioned earlier, each one of our partners has their own specific fare structure and their own specific fare rules and requirements, and so we had to incorporate that and tie them all into one system. So you can see Grand Rapids, single deployment, 3 years. Portland, Oregon, really it was just for rail and for transit. So with that, we were about the same time frame. They didn't have all the sister agencies that we have, and the more complex ones are a lot further out. So we're right in line with the 3 to 5 years. At 4 years, we were ready to go live last year, exactly when COVID hit. So we've been up and operational since end of February, beginning of March of last year. Next, please. This is just our funding. The total project cost was $12 million. To show mostly all of the project was funded with federal and state, a little bit of HART contribution. PSTA was a huge partner, as well as TBARTA from the regional perspective. Next, please. And I kind of went through this. These are all what's live now. Everything as far as the base system is up and operational. The spring, we're working on some improvements to our institutional partners for their web portals. Retail sales, I told you, was ongoing, and then our open payments will be further in the fall. Next, please. It has great reporting measures, and you might have to click that a couple of times, but it tells you all the hot spots. It tells you where folks are tapping on. It gives us a lot of data. It tells us it tells us where our ridership is. It tells marketing where they need to focus. You know, is there an area that's underutilized? Is there an area we can see all the different anomalies, and we have live data. Any of the users that are on this we have 16 licenses between us, can look at live data on their cell phones to monitor what ridership looks like. Next, please. So from the perspective of Title VI analysis, we did a lot of public engagement, went out to over 100 different agencies to look at how, and it's kind of more of an educational process right now, is to transition everyone and get the word out of, you know, where we are, where we're transitioning to, that it's going to be easier to use. Of course, we'll still take cash. We'll always take cash. But there are benefits, like I had talked about earlier, with the fare capping and with the account-based system. And next is the last one. We're going to have a real cool event this week. Unfortunately, it got canceled. COVID hit us again. But we have some buses that are wrapped with the Flamingo, which is the brand name. We were going to be at Lowry Park Zoo with their Flamingo exhibit, and that's where we were going to have our public launch. So stay tuned. That should be shortly, within the next week or two. But we are still getting a lot of adoption, although we have not reached out with any type of marketing campaign. But you can see from this slide that is upcoming. So I'll take any questions.
Any questions? Thank you very much.
Can you hear me? This is Gus. Can you hear me?
Yes, Gus.
Okay. I forget the name of the lady who made the presentation. One, I was a beta tester, so I've been using this for probably 3 years now. About 1/3 of the time, your readers are not working on your buses. Okay. Two, there is no interconnectivity between your cards and your app. If I have $63 on my card, there is no way to transfer it to the app. There's no way to transfer from the app to the card. They're two completely separate holders. They are not charging for replacement cards. I've replaced my card 4 times because I keep losing it because it's too thin and falls out of the back of my phone. They're not charging for that. And the $4 maximum, does that work when people ride the bus across the bay and it's a $3 charge? So the Pinellas Expresses are $3 each way. Are they maxing out at $4? I haven't used it, so I don't know.
So Heart is maxing out at $4. PSK is maxing out at $5. So you're exactly right. If you are crossing the bay, you'll max out at the higher limit. And you're correct. As far as it does recognize those as 2 separate accounts, they can be linked, however. So maybe it's just reaching out with some additional information to you. And I think right now, while we're in that transition period, they are not charging for cards because until we had board approval, they were not gonna charge our customers for cards until we can get that educational program out to the public. Obviously, we feel that this is a positive program. So what we wanted to do is folks that did lose their card during that period of time, we were replacing them. We were not charging. But after the transition is complete, you will get charged. So, but you will not lose your balance. So as long as you're recovering your balance that you have on those cards, that's the benefit of the system.
Right. Is there any consideration of integration of the One Bus Away Pro app and the Flamingo app so that everything is just on one?
Right. So you can access One Bus Away through Flamingo app. I don't have it open now because I'm on my phone, but yeah, One Bus Away, you should be able to see that from your Flamingo app and click it and immediately be pushed over.
Okay. Pretty much it's working. Basically, it's working. During the beta testing, there was no ability for like the county that has a huge subsidized pass program. There's no way to kind of beta test with them because we tried and there's no way to do that. So I guess that might be in your institutional.
And it may be, and Gus, we would really love your feedback. So please let us know as these things come up, because we want to hear back from you. So absolutely, as I couldn't tell you that specifically right now, but as you encounter, we would welcome your feedback.
Okay. That's it for me.
Okay, wonderful. Any other questions? Comments? Again, thank you very much for your report. It is much appreciated. Please keep us up to date.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Lisa, do we have any old business that we need to take care of?
Yes, one item I just wanted to share with the committee that your discussions and actions to submit a letter to the city of Tampa has resulted in a workshop on sidewalks. And so I put the date and time here in old business of April 22nd at 9 a.m. So you can tune in if you'd like to see and hear more about that. And then, as always, it's legislative season, and we've got a few articles and legislative updates in the addendums if you're so interested.
And I thank you for including those in our packets. If there is any...
Yeah, Gus again. Can we get an update on the transit tax from the people that are running it? Can they get on the agenda?
I can seek that out. Plus, I just happened to be listening to the WUSF Florida Matters interview on that topic, the surtax. Our executive director of the MPO was interviewed and did a very concise overview. So I'll send that link out since I'm re-listening to it myself since I had a conflict. So I'll do that, and then we'll consider a speaker if
Thank
we
you.
need to. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, and then our next meeting is April 18th. See you then.
And if there's nothing else to bring before the committee, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.